Hi everyone, Virginia Hernandez, Century 21 All-Stars, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing an appraiser, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Good afternoon everybody, my name is Ralph Crisaro. I'm a certified licensed appraiser and I appraise in a number of states. I've been appraising for about 25 years. I've done over 23,000 appraisals and roughly about $3.5 to $4 billion in valuations, and I average between $400 to $500 million in valuations a year.
So today I wanted to really interview him and ask him, what is the process of an appraisal? I'm a realtor and we always like to have this information to educate our sellers. So give us a little rundown.
It's a great question. In its most basic form, an appraisal or any type of valuation, whether it be a service or a product, is putting a dollar amount on the market appeal or market reaction of that feature. So in appraisal specifically, it's all determined by supply and demand. The greater the supply, the lower the value. The greater the demand, the higher the value. In real estate, the most important thing that applies is going to be what the three rules are: location, location, location. Why is that important? Because you can't change that. You can change the color, you can change the design, but you can't change the location. Once you've determined the location, then the next factor of influence is going to be the conformity. Does the neighborhood conform with your particular property? Are you the biggest house, the smallest house? The design, is it consistent with other properties? In real estate or nations in general, the greater conformity to the masses will have the most appeal as far as valuation. Then the next thing is going to be the condition, or I like to say the upgrades of a property. So just because a property is upgraded by itself doesn't necessarily add value. It's how is it remodeled? Is it consistent with the current times? We just did a house where a person spent a lot of money, but the design was dated from 5 years ago. And the person showed me receipts and I said, look, I appreciate it. I'm not saying you didn't spend that kind of money, but your time frame is not consistent with today's buyer. So it's real important to be consistent with the current buyer.
How about unpermitted structures?
That's a big change in our industry. About 2 years ago, specifically dealing with accessory dwelling units, because of a shortage, they changed the guidelines for Fannie Mae and HUD. Before we determine if something's unpermitted, we have to take a step back to find out if it's illegal. And there's a big difference there, because if something is illegal, we can no longer appraise it, and to the best of my knowledge, we can't lend on it. So let's give you an example of something that's illegal versus unpermitted, and then we'll address the unpermitted valuation process. Let's say you have a property that's zoned R1. That means you can only have one structure on that particular land. If you have two structures, now you're illegal, so all of a sudden the process ends. But let's use that same example, but the zoning is R2. Now you can have two structures on them. So this particular feature is legal by the zoning, however, the buyers, sellers, or developer never went through the permit process. This is the big change today versus in the past. HUD and Fannie Mae now require us to give that valuation if there's a certain consistency with the formula. The formula relates to two different features: market acceptance and market reaction. So what is market acceptance? Market acceptance states, is it common in that particular market area to have properties with unpermitted features? If we can show that that neighborhood is consistent with our property, then we've shown market acceptance. What's market reaction? Market reaction is there a history of people paying a premium for a property with an unpermitted features versus one that doesn't have it? Now we've shown market reaction. If we can show market acceptance and market reaction, then we can have a supportable value. However, it's real important to understand that in most cases that are not going to be a cash transaction, there's going to be a lender involved. And I always joke around, what's the golden rule in real estate? The one that has the gold makes the rules. In our particular case, the lender has the gold, it's their money. So we have to understand that lenders may or may not be consistent with appraisal guidelines. A lot of lenders will say, hey, it's our money and we don't like to lend on properties with unpermitted modifications. So it's real important to know the lender guidelines when you're dealing with an unpermitted modification.
Regarding ADUs, can you kind of give us a little more emphasis on that?
Absolutely. ADUs are a unique structure that's in vogue these days, and people automatically think that adding this structure will automatically add value. That's not the case. The one consistency I always tell her is that everything's different. So you have to know market per market. For example, if you're in Santa Monica, that ADU could be worth $1 million. In Huntington Beach, probably not so much. You have to know that neighborhood.
Thing I'd like to understand is the condition of the property. Put value on that.
That's a great question, and I always defer from condition to upgrades, because you're gonna have some properties that are really well maintained but original. So you have to understand that from an appraisal perspective. Once again, we're representing market reaction, and if you have a house that is remodeled, updated with quality materials consistent with the contemporary design, you're gonna have a greater market reaction than one that doesn't have the upgrades.
I'd like to truly understand the process. How do you determine which comps you're going to use and which ones you're not?
Absolutely, another great question. And a lot of times I always tell people, use common sense, use what you would do. You know, in the appraisal process, you think we have some formulas, guidelines, and approaches, and that's all true, but at the end of the day, you use common sense. Ideally, your best comp would be your neighbor, right? However, that doesn't work in a perfect world. So therefore, if we don't have similar sales, and similar means in location, condition, characteristics, all these factors, then we're allowed to expand in time and in distance. And they both carry with themselves the unique challenges. If you're going in time, okay, is it a flat market? Is it an increasing market? Is it a decreasing market? What about distance? Okay, let's use the example I just shared with her earlier. I just did one in Southgate. The agent gave me comparables are all in Downey. Okay, so you're half a mile away, but you're a world away as far as the market reaction. So you have to understand what's appropriate. That the two things I can leave you with that you will hopefully help you in determining the value is use appropriateness and reasonable.
So for a seller in today's market, what suggestion can you give them to be able to sell their home top dollar?
Absolutely. Again, we got supply and demand situations right now, which may not always be the case. So what I'm going to try to share with you are situations that are not infected by that. So a lot of times people forget that we're human beings. When I go to a house, I just did a house a couple of weeks ago where it was beautifully remodeled. It was a great market area, had all these factors. I opened the door and it smells like cat urine. It's like, whoa, all of a sudden you forget about all those factors and that's the only thing. In fact, today I'm speaking with you because it was such a powerful influence. So a lot of times don't discount the human element. We're humans, you have four senses. Make sure that you appeal to the four senses. And if that appeals to me, that'll probably appeal to buyers. Use paint that is neutral. The successful investors, the flippers, always use neutral canvases. Rarely you see a hot pink or some unique color. You want to appeal to the masses. You let them see themselves there, and then you'll see them with their decision, with their purchasing dollars. If you're going to remodel or you're going to spend, people always tell me, where should I invest? Again, the two most important rooms are your kitchen and your bathroom. Absolutely. But again, don't go overboard. You know, if you have a neighborhood where the price point is $200,000, don't spend $250,000. You went above and beyond. You're not going to get that money back as an investment. And the opposite also applies. If you have a high-end area, don't use low-quality materials because your buyers are going to know the difference. You want to be, again, reasonable and appropriate for that market area.
Ralph, what other jobs as far as appraisals do you do for the community?
Hi, that's a great question. Besides appraisals for lending purposes, we specialize in non-lending appraisals for trusts, divorces, bankruptcies, or just personal knowledge. A lot of times there's individuals that want to pay a house cash. They just want to know what it's worth. If we can help you out with that, we'd love to help you out. Reach out to us.
Wow, great information from our appraiser, Ralph. Again, just trying to educate the community, homeowners, and potential sellers. Thank you very much, Ralph. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Reach out to us if you have some more details. Again, this was just a quick introductory to about appraisal process. There's a lot of factors that I didn't cover today just by time, but I'd love to help you out if you have a unique situation. Reach out to Virginia, and she'll reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Thank you.